Welcome to Stetson Law Live, an online, interactive, informational event for prospective students of Stetson University College of Law. Your host today, Assistant Dean of Admissions and Student Financial Planning, Laura Zuppo. Our special guest today, Professor of Law, Bobby Flowers. Today's topic, the JD admissions process.
Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for logging in to the Stetson Law Live special event today. We're calling this sort of a virtual lunch and learn because we know so many of you are probably at work or taking a break during the midday. My name is Laura Zuppo and I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions and Student Financial Planning. What we're seeing is that nationally, applications have gone down. And we feel like it's going to be a trend that will change probably in the next several years. But law schools have done some really good things, and I think we actually need to highlight that. Many schools have responded to the declining applications and similar decline in jobs available by cutting their classes. Stetson has done that as well. We are actually enrolling only 220 to 225 new students for the full-time class this fall. We are going to enroll about 45 new students for the part-time class. Years ago, we brought in many, many more students. So I think we're doing a really good job in responsibly bringing down enrollment, which will then help people on the back end as they go to seek jobs. Additionally, something else I wanted to share with you is that we have an applicant pool historically of between 2,000 and 2,500 folks. So if you're doing the math, you're saying, wow, that's, a lot of people apply, but you only enroll a few. That's because just like every other school out there, the law schools always accept more people than they ever really plan to enroll. I bet you don't know this, but the average person applies to approximately 6 law schools. That's according to the Law School Admission Council. So if the average person is applying to 6 schools, we know from looking at our data that some of you will choose us and some of you will choose another program. So that's why a school always admits more people than they have room to sit in the fall class. But as I said, we're bringing in about 225 students for full-time and about 45 for part-time. So what I'd like to ask Professor Flowers is to share a little bit about how that translates into 1L class sizes and sections and sort of tell you a little bit about that. And then we're going to kind of jump into the admissions process in a bit.
Well, I think it's really important to understand that the class size obviously is not indicative of how many students you'll be sitting with in class, because in the 1L classes, we divide them into sections, 3 or 4 sections, and so you're never going to be in a class that's more than 70 to 75 students, which is what makes a school like Stetson kind of different than other schools. You're not going to be in, especially in your first year classes, you're not going to be sitting with 90 and 100 other students. You're going to be sitting in a much smaller classroom, which means that your professors are going to get to know you much better. Now, for some people that's like, no, that's not the kind of school I want to go to. I don't want anybody to know me. But if you are interested in having more of a one-on-one relationship with your faculty members, mentoring from a faculty member, you want to be looking at schools that are going to divide their their first year classes into sections that are about 70. Once you get more than 75, you're really into a very different culture.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, Professor Flowers. And so I'd like to jump in now that I think just about everybody who's probably planning to join us has logged in. I'd like to talk just a little bit about sort of the timeline for admission. I think it's really helpful for folks to know how things work on our end, okay? So let me just share with everyone that when you go to apply, all of your materials are really pretty much available to us right away. Everything that you do with LSAC, we immediately get through a software product that they manage. All the law schools use this product. And what happens is you're going to be able to sort of fill out an application that sends a lot of your standard information out to the schools. We process it. We may email you and ask for missing information. Most of us will email you and say, hey, your file is ready for committee review, or you're missing something, please turn it in. My team is really hands-on. Maria Keskany in my office does a great job communicating with candidates. She'll let you know, hey, you're missing a disposition for a violation. We're missing your personal statement. Your personal statement came in with the track changes feature still on. By the way, don't do that. Please make sure you turn off the track changes and send the final copy. But what we do is we then process it. We let you know when it's ready to review. There's an online status checker that you can look at to see if you are missing anything and when it's come in. And then we send it off to the committee. And who is this committee? The committee is made up of faculty members. Darren Kettles, our Associate Director of Admissions, he also sits on the committee, as do I. But primarily the faculty committee reads the files, and we make decisions on admission. We make decisions on scholarships. That process tends to take a little bit of time because it's not just professional staff generally reading the files. We like to involve our faculty. So I'd like to then just sort of turn this into what do we look for at the application level. And the first thing I want to talk about is the LSAT. And Professor Flowers, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe your own experiences with the LSAT and maybe some things that you would say to candidates who are worried that that standardized test will predict success or failure for them? How about that?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that you want to think about with regard to the LSAT. Unfortunately, the LSAT is very heavily weighed by almost every law school in the United States, determining who they're going to admit or not. And it's important for you to understand that that is because we have, first of all, statistically, it's been shown that an LSAT score is a predictor for how well you're going to do in law school, and it is a predictor on, more importantly, where you're going to pass the bar. And so using the LSAT score is really an accurate predictor for most everybody. That doesn't mean that we don't have all kinds of great stories of people that didn't do well in the LSAT, come to Stetson, do a great job, pass the bar, and are wonderful lawyers out there in the community. But statistically, the LSAT score is a good predictor. So it is used by law schools as kind of a bottom line predictor on who's going to be successful. The other thing that you need to understand, and we're not alone here, every other law school is concerned about this. The rankings that I know many of you are considering are made based in part on the LSAT scores of the entering class. So the LSAT scores of the students that we admit and come to Stetson are going to impact what our ranking is. And so obviously that's of concern also. So LSAT scores are important. Having said that, just because you have a great LSAT score does not mean that you're going to get admitted into a law school. You need to be very aware that we don't just look at LSAT score and nothing else and admit people or deny people. It is very much a holistic approach to looking at those files. And so we are going to consider people whose LSAT scores may not be as high as we would have anticipated, but because they have other things that we think will make them a successful law student.
That's actually a really good point. One of the things that students underestimate is the value of their personal statement, their full academic record, the letters of recommendation. What I would like to do right now is talk a little bit more about the academic record, the grades, the transcripts. Students, really, if you are watching right now and you've just completed your fall semester, please be sure to update LSAC with this semester's grades, because we really want to have the chance to look at you in the middle of, at least through the middle of senior year. And then once you graduate and prior to enrollment, you're going to also send LSAC a final copy of your transcripts. But let me just talk with you about what we look at in an academic record. The transcript isn't just about the grades you've earned in your major. We really don't look at just the major GPA. I'm looking at what you did as a freshman. I'm looking at your sophomore year grades. I'm looking to see if you took a rigorous mix of classes that challenged you, classes that tested your writing skills, your research skills, your analytical thinking, your critical reasoning skills. We want to know that you are prepared for graduate school. Having said that, if you are, say, a freshman, sophomore, junior, and you're watching, there's no one major that's better than any other major. I mean, we have people from music backgrounds, chemistry, more traditional majors like English, history, political science. Philosophy is a fantastic major. At the end of the day, take a rigorous mix of courses, take strong electives. I don't want to see a bunch of intro to whatever, theater, badminton, I don't know, intro to history, bowling, intro to sociology. I don't want to see a bunch of intros for a senior student, especially fall of senior year. We want to see that you've moved into an upper level curriculum that's a little bit more challenging. There are also some students who maybe didn't do so well. Maybe as a freshman, you had a rough go of it. You know, sometimes students started college, they had a little bit of fun, maybe too much fun, and by the time they hit sophomore year and junior year, they really started showing an upward grade trend. We're kind of used to that, but you should probably address that in some kind of addendum to your application that's 1 or 2 paragraphs long that just explains what was going on. Similarly, if you had maybe one bad semester, perhaps you got sick, and in hindsight, you should have taken a medical withdrawal, you probably want to write an addendum explaining the medical withdrawal or explaining that one abnormal semester. So we do look at the whole file. We also look at graduate school. We have a lot of students who apply to law school who've already earned a master's degree. In some cases, MDs and PhDs come to law school. So I'm going to ask Professor Flowers to really talk about the value of a graduate degree and how we look at the graduate degree and the undergrad, and maybe, you know, some things that she can share for you guys in terms of tips and advice.
Right. I think one of the things that students need to think about is looking at their record as a whole. Because if in fact you had some struggles in your first couple of years, you were doing better and you really want to go to law school, but you still really haven't reached that kind of critically grade point average, graduate school is a great place to go as a filler for that position. We consider, again, what have you moved from and to? Are you prepared now to go to law school? Are you showing me, when I look at your file, that you have moved to a place where you're going to be a successful law student? Understand, our most important consideration is whether you will succeed as a Stetson law student. The worst thing I can do is admit a student who is not going to succeed at Stetson and is going to end up not being able to graduate or graduate and not pass the bar. We don't want to put you in that position. So we want to look at all of the indicators we can find that show that you're prepared to come to law school. So absolutely, graduate school is a wonderful way to kind of buffet or buffer that problem you may have had early on in your undergraduate career. One of the things that we also look at is I'm going to consider if you've got a lower grade point average, but when I look at you as compared to the other students in your school, in other words, your school doesn't have grade inflation. Your school really does grade very difficultly, and that's not a good word, is it? Difficultly? Your school has a very stringent grading policy, and therefore the grades that I'm seeing are really much better than grades that I would see at a school that does have grade inflation. We're going to consider that. That appears right on the LSAT. It gives the percentage of where you would fall with that grade point average in relation to the rest of your school. So that's a very important consideration that we have when we're comparing different institutions and grades. So it's hard to say. I'll get a call and somebody will say, well, what grade point average do I have to have in order to get into Stetson? Well, it's not that easy because we look at a variety of different things with regard to that grade point average.
Absolutely. we've covered a couple things. We've talked a little bit about the LSAT and the importance of the LSAT. We talked a little bit about the sort of how it works on our end and the GPA and the transcripts. I would love it if you guys have questions to go ahead and start typing them for us. And what we're going to do is I'm going to read the question as I see it, and then Professor Flowers and I will go back and forth and answer it. For those of you who don't have questions, we're just going to keep talking. Does that sound good? I think we could talk for hours and hours about this. So I have some other things I want to talk about. The first thing is the personal statement. I briefly mentioned that. For me, the personal statement is your chance to market yourself. Once in a while, we conduct interviews, but it's really quite rare. I mean, we very rarely do that. In fact, interviews would only be for somebody maybe who has English as a second language and we're assessing their level, make sure they're okay for law school, or perhaps somebody who has a character and fitness background that leaves us with some concerns. So interviews are very rarely granted. So the personal statement is your chance to talk to us, is to tell us why you would be a good fit for Stetson and why you want to go to law school. The actual statement we have is, what are your aspirations for the study of law? Our personal statement should not be any longer than 2 to 3 pages, double spaced. Double spaced. I don't want size 9 font, guys, okay? Size 12 or 11 is fine. The personal statement should be very professionally written. Please limit your use of humor. Okay, it's been done. It can often be done poorly, so you probably want to check the use of humor. Additionally, I want to see how well you write. We are looking to see if you write persuasively, clearly. Are you organized? We're looking at your transitions from paragraph to paragraph and topic to topic. We want to know that you have a good use of grammar and syntax and all of those more typical and expected things. But beyond that, we want to see your passion. I want to know that you're truly committed to going to law school, that you've done your self-assessment, that you've done the research, that you know you are going to, be successful. Well, you don't always know, but you can kind of guess you're going to be successful. But we want to see that passion, that commitment. And I think the other thing that I'm looking for, especially for candidates who fall into the gray area, I want to know why Stetson. I want to know that you've picked us for a reason. So if you are interested in, say, the elder law concentration, advocacy, or international environmental law or something, and you know we have an expertise in that area, tell us that's what's attracting you to Stetson. And by all means, please do not forget to edit the statement. If I have to read one more personal statement where the candidate tells me that they want to go to X school and it's their top choice, but we're not X school, it's a typo. It turns us off. It drives us crazy. So you must edit. You must double check which statement you're uploading to which school. Okay? All right. So I have some great questions here. And what I'd like to do right now is start looking at those. We have a student who's asking about a lower undergraduate GPA, around a 2.7, who also did quite well in their master's degree and received all A's. And that's actually a really good question. It sort of goes to what Professor Flowers was talking about, how that master's degree is really an enhancement to the file and will help balance out maybe a lower undergraduate GPA. Did you want to add anything to that?
Right. I mean, obviously there's going to be a couple of issues that we would want to know. I mean, obviously if your master's is in bowling, that might be a problem. But obviously, so we will be looking at what the master's is in. That's an important consideration. But absolutely, we're going to consider that you have done well in a master's program. Now, having said that, I'm not going to say to you that eliminates that 2.71 GPA. It's certainly going to be considered. But we're going to look at a master's program as, again, showing that you are prepared to come to a professional school.
Well, and I think that's important for people to know, because some of our students are non-traditional, and this actually goes to the next question. Some of our students have GPAs from 10, 15, even 20 years ago, and they say, back in 1988, I wasn't thinking about law school. I was having a great time in college, but as I matured and as I moved through my career, I realized law school was right for me, but can I get in with these grades? yeah, you may be able to get in with those grades, especially if you have a graduate degree that really shows your ability and willingness to work hard. So that leads us to talk a little bit more about non-traditional students. And I'm going to tell just a story. We actually have a member of our faculty, Professor Kopic. He actually worked for many years in one industry, and at some point in his career decided he wanted to go to law school. And after he graduated law school, and I want to say he was in his maybe 40s or so.
Yeah, he was
in his 40s,
maybe even late 40s.
Maybe even late 40s. He came here to Stetson, and he did very, very well and became a very, very successful trial attorney. And at some point, several years later, after practicing, he decided to come back and teach. And he's been one of our coaches and members of our faculty for a long time. And I'd like to get him in touch with our prospective students who are non-traditional, because I think he has a good way to sort of share how he took his professional experiences as a member of corporate America and took some of that and was able to kind of transition to law school. He approached law school as a job. And I think even if you are a traditional student, you need to look at law school as a job. And it's going to be a different type of job, but it's a job nonetheless. And if you treat it as such, you'll be a little bit more disciplined. The other thing about non-traditional students is after a week or two, I think most of the students stop noticing the age differences. People sort of gel and they bond and they develop common interest, and the age difference really starts going away. Non-traditional students often have families at home and often, can't be as involved as their classmates. We actually offer a student organization for parents, and we have a number of parents. In fact, at last night's graduation ceremony or service, whatever we want to call it, I can't tell you the number of people who crossed over to shake the dean's hand, and when they were sort of announced, they were thanking their kids and their spouses and their partners. And it was really amazing to think about how many students do law school with a family at home and checking their kids' homework. So non-traditional students, please don't be afraid to tackle this. I think you just look at it as a new challenge and a new professional opportunity. Professor, did you want to add to that?
Well, I will just say from a professor's perspective, non-traditional students are just such a pleasure to have in the classroom because they bring such a different dynamic. They have some life experiences that really add to the classroom discussion. So it's really exciting for a professor to have kind of a mix of traditional and non-traditional students within their classroom.
I think that's true. I think it's all very important to have different folks in the classroom, because can you guys imagine if we had students who were all the same age and they were all from the same group or cluster of majors and none of them had different experiences? It would really be a boring classroom environment.
Absolutely.
And what's neat right now is we bring people in from all walks of life and backgrounds. And think about it, if you're sitting in class next to a police officer and you're taking a criminal law class, who better to tell you about the impact of the law on society than the police officer?
Right.
So we have another really good question, and it's actually about the number of credit hours that people take per semester. And I really want to just sort of explain to you all how the first year works versus your upper level. And I'll start with the first year, but then I think Professor Flowers, maybe you can talk a little bit about credit hours. One thing you need to know about Stetson, and this is true with some law schools, you really need to look at the individual schools. We actually charge you on a flat rate. We don't charge per hour. So in full-timers, you're taking 16 hours as a first semester, first year, and about 15 hours your second semester. You are charged flat rate. Now, that's going to be whether you take 10 hours to 17 hours. You're charged this rate, full-time students. Part-timers, you're charged a different rate, and it's whether you take, let's say, 5 to 10 credit hours or whatever it is. So one of the things that you have to think about as you get into your upper levels and your upper level classes, you probably want to take a good solid amount, more than the minimum of 10, so that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. The thing we don't want to see is people overspending for their legal education because they took the minimum amount of credit hours each semester, causing them to delay and graduate in a longer amount of time. I hope that makes sense. So your first year full-timers, 16 in the fall, 15 in the spring, no flexibility. Obviously, if you're having any challenges, we could consider a reduced course load. Part-timers, you're typically doing 8 or 9 in the fall, 8 or 9 in the spring. And then you guys have to go that first summer, okay? So you would be taking 6 that first summer. Once everybody gets through their required curriculum, then you have some flexibility. And this is where I'm going to ask Professor Flowers to talk a little bit about credits and balancing.
Right. Well, and obviously as you get into the upper level, you're also looking at a different kind of classes that you're taking. You're going to want to consider, do you want to take an internship? Do you want to take a clinic? Do you want to take what we call simulation classes where, you are pretending to try a case? So all of those classes are a little bit different, and as you move through that into that second year, you begin to want to create mentor relationships with faculty members so that you can discuss with them, okay, this semester I'm taking a clinic. So if I'm taking a clinic, how many additional hours should I take in order to kind of balance that workload out? You're going to take less credits usually when you're doing the clinic because you want to be in the clinic as many hours as you possibly can be. If you're taking a class that's going to require a lot of classroom participation every single week with regard to preparing a trial, you may want to take fewer credit hours. So you're still going to be looking at that 16 to 17 or probably 15 to 17 area, but it's going to differ depending on what kinds of classes you're taking. One of the really exciting things here at Stetson is that we just have so many opportunities for hands-on experiences that you want to take as many of those as you can, but you've got to balance that against the academic also. So it's kind of what's nice is, again, you're going to be able to find a mentor that's going to be able to kind of guide you based on what you're interested in and try to make those second and third year decisions.
That's very true. I'm really excited. You guys are starting to jump in there and ask some great questions. So let's get some more of these going. We have a question about the February LSAT. Actually, that is completely wrong. We do accept the February LSAT. In fact, we've been accepting it for several years. The deadline is actually May 15th to submit your application. We'll take February. We will also accept a June score if you've already submitted your application by May 15th. Now, for those of you who are kind of procrastinating the LSAT and you end up taking June, I'm going to have to tell you, it puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage. Not only are you being reviewed at the end of the cycle, you're also being reviewed at the end of the cycle for scholarship dollars. Our scholarship preferred application deadline or priority deadline for scholarships is actually February 1st. Now, we'll continue to award scholarships throughout the cycle. I just know that the early bird, well, you know what, the early bird does get the worm, okay? So there's no other way to say it. I mean, we know that we have a certain amount of money, and as we get candidates who fall into a meritorious standing, we're going to give them the scholarship dollars. So if you're a top applicant and you wait until May 15th, you may not be awarded as generous of a scholarship as you might have otherwise received had you applied early. Now, there's actually another question here about veterans. First of all, thank you for your service. We certainly appreciate that, and Stetson is definitely a place where there's support. If you're not a local, just so you know, the St. Pete area, we have the VA hospital in Tampa, we have the local Bay Pines hospital here. There are a lot of support systems in the St. Petersburg area. We have an active student veterans organization. I am one of the 2 VA school certifying officials. Jennifer Frazier is the other one. So your admissions and financial aid office will help you with your benefits. What you will also want to know is that we are a yellow ribbon scholarship supporting school. We will support about up to 15 students per year with yellow ribbon scholarships. Chat with me offline. We'll talk some more about that. But what I will say is that the student body here, in terms especially with the veteran students, is pretty connected and pretty tight-knit. We also have our institute, our Veterans Law Institute, where you can actually get involved with your pro bono work to support other veterans seeking benefits who've maybe been denied and are in the appeals process. So great community for veterans. I think you're going to find that there are several members of the faculty and staff who are also veterans and who are willing to serve as mentors and help you through it. I want to actually talk a little bit about full-time students holding part-time jobs. Great question. The American Bar Association actually has the standard on that. So no matter where you go to law school, there is an answer. And the answer is, although you are permitted to work in law school as a full-time student, you may not work more than 20 hours a week while you are a full-time student. Now, during summer break or winter break, you can certainly work a full-time job. As a second or third year law student, 20 hours a week is probably going to be fine, depending on the mix of classes, as Professor Flowers shared, or your volunteer and extracurricular work. As a 1L, guys, please, Professor Flowers is nodding over here, please do everything in your power not to work as a 1L. But if you need to work, we will work with you and talk with you about it. Some of our students have been long-term employees at Publix or Applebee's or another chain that has benefits and has retirement packages. And they want to work at least one day a month because that keeps them in good standing so that they can continue to accrue their benefits. If that is your situation, we'll definitely work with you. We'll talk with you more about that at orientation and tell you the rules and regulations. The next question that we have is a little bit about summer school. I think that's kind of an interesting one. Full-time students and part-time students may not begin their law studies in the summer. Everybody starts in the fall. Part-time students are required to attend the first summer, but are allowed to attend or may not attend, whatever they want to do after that. Full-time students may also choose to attend summers, but do not have to attend. Some of our students who are full-time, for example, will do 2 summers and graduate early. They might graduate in December instead of May. There's a lot of things that go behind the scenes with planning for something like that, but you can also do that. So summer is actually a really good time to do a clinic, an internship, do a study abroad program. We have China, Argentina, the Netherlands, we have, I'm missing something else, Spain. How could I forget Spain? So there are a lot of good things to do in the summer.
And I think that's a really important idea, that there are lots of opportunities in the summer. We have a lot of online classes in our summer school curriculum. So there's lots of opportunity to work and to also go to school during the summer school. But you want to begin to think about what you want to do in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Again, it's really important to be thinking ahead. Once you get in and you get your first year, you want to really be thinking about 2 and 3 and 4 semesters out, not just the next semester. So
absolutely. We actually have another really good question about the LSAT, and this is about retaking the LSAT. I'd actually like to just share with you a little bit, because there are some misconceptions about retaking the LSAT. In 2006, the American Bar Association changed the rule, and at that point in time, we no longer had to report the average LSAT score. So in many students' cases, taking it again, resulting in a higher score, really and truly helped them. And so a lot of schools sort of began to look a little bit less heavily at the average and really focus on the high score. And Stetson is one of those schools. Now, if there's a really large variance between test 1 and test 2, by all means, please write an addendum explaining what happened. Here's an example. I had a student take it one time and get in the mid 140s, and I recently worked with this student to craft an addendum because they took it cold the first time. Never cracked a book. Don't do that. Please read, please prepare, please practice. But this student went ahead and took it cold, which is a mistake. They took it a second time and got a score that I would say completely reflects their abilities and their record of success as a student, and they got a 158. So in the old days, we would average those scores together. But in this case, we're going to take the high score, we're going to report the high score to the accrediting agency, the ABA. I am, though, in the back of my mind, as I read this candidate's file, I'm going to wonder, was the 145 more indicative of their ability, or is the 158? So that's where an addendum comes in handy. So if you are a student that takes it again, and you have a big gap, you need to write some kind of addendum to let us know what happened with the 2 scores. So if you are taking the test again in February to make up for a score that you weren't really happy with from December, that is fine. If you would like to talk with us, please email us, give us a call. We'll talk with you about maybe how you want to handle that, if you want us to send you through to committee for review, or if you want us to hold you for the February score. Just give us a call and we'll walk through all of that and give you some advice.
I think it's important also that what you were saying earlier about the June scores, because although we consider the June LSAT scores, if that's a lower score, you won't have an opportunity to take another exam. And so you want to consider that if you were putting it off until June, that it might make sense to take February, and then that way if you need to take a later one because you didn't do quite as well as you'd like to, you would do it in June. Can I just add also, I want to say something that I may have forgotten to add, and that's something that a lot of students don't really understand with regard to the LSAT. I'm going to look at your LSAT score, but one of the things I'm really going to look at, and I think some students don't realize this, is that writing sample on your LSAT that you do during that timed period. Really, really important consideration by a lot of faculties reviewing admissions files. Why? Because that shows me your ability to write in a timed situation. That tells me how you're going to do on exams. And so you really want to be very, very intentional about being organized. I can't say that enough when you write that very short essay. I'm going to be looking at, does the person organize their thoughts? Do they have topical sentences? I mean, very rudimentary, if you might say, ways of writing that we all learned in 8th grade, but under that pressure, we forget. So you really want to practice writing under a timed situation and organizing your thoughts. You want to be very careful that your grammar, and of course I've said some pretty weird things here lately, but your grammar is tight, that your punctuation is right. Those are the things that I'm going to be looking at, maybe even more so than in your personal statement, because I know that you're smart enough to have somebody read your personal statement and make sure that there's no problems. So you want to make sure that you show me in that LSAT essay that you know how to write under time pressures. Really important, and I don't know that people emphasize that enough.
No, and I think I actually want to share with everyone, you all probably don't know how we see the writing sample. Your writing sample is scanned into the LSAC system, and then it's actually saved as a PDF. So I have to read a scanned PDF, and if you have really bad handwriting, that's actually going to hurt you. I cannot tell you how many students writing samples go unread because I can't read what they've written. So don't ignore that. I know that there are going to be a lot of schools that ignore it. They don't care about it. We do. Many schools do. So pay attention to it, everyone, and don't take it lightly, and try to write neatly. And that could put you from a maybe or a wait list. It could actually move you into the yes pile, okay, virtual yes pile, since we read files online. We have a couple of other really good questions, and one of them is about employment, and I actually brought some information with me today. The ABA requires all law schools to have on their website what's called the employment summary. And it's on our website. If you go to our homepage, you're going to see a tab at the top called Career Services. Click down. It's going to say Employment Report. Okay? I'm not going to go through all the data here because it could take forever. It is like one really, really, really long Excel spreadsheet. So for my prospective student out there who asked the question about employment, what I'm going to do is ask you to please go onto our website and take a look at it. We have it on there not only for 2012, but we have it for 11 and 10, and it's broken down by jobs that require a bar passage, jobs that are part-time, people pursuing a graduate degree, how many went to large firms, federal clerkships, etc. So go ahead and take a look at it. If you can't find it, give me a holler, and I'll send you a copy. I want to move on now to, we have a student who is actually about to start their undergraduate degree. So kudos to you for logging into the webinar today. And this student wants some advice on how to get on the right road and the right path to gaining admission to Stetson Law. And the first thing I want to tell you is, don't worry about the major. Pick a major you enjoy. Pick a major where you're going to do well. So if someone's pressuring you to pick a particular major because they think that's the best major for law school, I'm going to challenge you to kind of dismiss their advice a little, and Professor Flowers is nodding her head over here. So I think that what we want you to do is pick a major that excites you. People tend to do their best work in areas of study that inspire them and where they have a passion. I chose sociology. I focused on anthropology as a secondary major, but I took a lot of math and science courses because I thought they were fun. Math is fun. I like math.
Okay, well, that says a lot.
It says a lot, yeah. So if math is fun for you, take a math major. The bottom line is to get ready for law school and to be your best possible candidate for law school, you have to do well. You need solid grades. We need solid grades in the freshman comp class all the way through senior year. We want you to stay out of trouble, okay? Character and fitness, another word for are you staying out of trouble or are you causing trouble, right? Character and fitness is important. We don't want to bring in people who disregard the law. We're bringing in people who are going to be officers of the law. So do well in school. Stay out of trouble. Definitely, I want to see you do extra and co-curricular activities. You may work. Some of our applicants have had to work full-time to support themselves and families. Working is wonderful. We're just looking to see that you can multitask and you're not just kind of like burying your head in the books and that you never interact with another human, okay? It's a whole package. It's holistic. We actually have another question about scholarships, and I want to transition to scholarships, and this will take a few minutes. So what I want to do is just sort of share, first of all, what Stetson has in terms of types of scholarships. And then I want to talk a little bit about scholarship retention, because that's another secondary question. It's a hot button in the media today. Stetson has scholarships based on LSAT and GPA. It's the cumulative undergrad GPA. And these are merit scholarships that we award at the time of admission. In fact, when we're reading your files, we make a recommendation at the time of scoring for a scholarship, and then we do a sort of a secondary review. And then we typically send out the scholarship offer at the same time and in the same letter as the admission offer. And our scholarships range from partial tuition all the way to full tuition, and in some cases full tuition with a book stipend. Candidates who receive a full tuition scholarship typically have an LSAT score in the 160s. I mean, they're usually our top candidates, 164, 163 and higher, with a GPA that's pretty high in the upper threes. Then it kind of goes down in part from there. I've awarded some scholarships recently. I've signed some letters where somebody with a 157 has had a pretty decent scholarship, but they also had a top-of-the-line GPA, and they've done some amazing things. So there is no formula for it. We're not a school where you can log on to their website and plug in your LSAT score and GPA and outspits a scholarship number. We don't do that. In fact, if you have a lot of character and fitness violations, we're probably going to think long and hard about awarding you a more generous scholarship, because we want to make sure that we're rewarding overall excellence and not rewarding poor choices and bad behavior, to be honest. The other thing that I would say about scholarships is the vast majority, about 90% of the scholarships we award each year, come with a requirement that you maintain good academic standing as well as good standing with respect to codes of conduct and honor code. That good standing threshold is a 2.25 GPA. That's the GPA you need to move on from first year to second year anyway. About 10% of our scholarships require top 50% standing after the first year. Over the last couple of years, we have not had to rescind a scholarship. I think it's now been 3, maybe going on 4 years. That data is also something that every law school must report on their website, and we do have a chart. It's called a scholarship retention chart, and that's on our website as well. So I really hope that answers your questions about scholarships. Now, Stetson, in terms of retention, Stetson also offers scholarships for students who fall into a different category. We happen to be very fortunate that we have a pool of funds where we can award students money who bring diversity to the College of Law and to the legal profession. And these are mission-based scholarships. These are for students who really help further the mission and the vision of the College of Law. We've had students who over the years have overcome just enormous obstacles just to be able to graduate from college. And we want to make sure that their hard work and their dedication, their perseverance is honored and recognized. If you believe that you fall into a more, into a category, racial and ethnic diversity, overcoming obstacles, you've overcome some very challenging socioeconomic times with your family, and you would like to apply for these scholarships, we don't actually have an application per se, but you can write a separate statement and upload it with your personal statement, and we'll consider that during the review process. It's a smaller pool of funds, but we're really glad we have them. We have about 15 minutes left, and we have a few more questions. So if we've missed you, we're looking at a teleprompter, so if you've missed your question, go ahead and repeat it. We're going to just kind of keep going and see what we see. Let's see, it says, does the part-time program fill up? Have the 45 slots already been chosen? The part-time pool is a really amazing pool of candidates. No, no, neither our full-time nor our part-time is full and probably won't fill up for a bit. The part-time program candidates tend to be a little bit more non-traditional. They tend to be folks who are working full-time and maybe put off law school because they had a family or didn't really know they wanted to go to law school. They're coming back later in life. Some of these folks, as a result, are taking a February and sometimes June LSAT. So the part-time program doesn't always fill up as quickly as the full-time class, but every year is different, so I don't want to make a generalization that you all make me stick to. So it could be different this year, I just don't know, but you still have plenty of time to apply and be considered for both full and part-time. So let's see, we have a question about the curve. Professor Flowers, do you want to explain curve/grade normalization, what it's like here at Stetson, and maybe if you're familiar with some other schools, give sort of a comparison?
Yes. We at Stetson have what's called grade normalization. Grade normalization is one of those things that people think, oh, I don't think I like the idea of grade normalization. But the truth is, grade normalization is very helpful to students. It means in your first year, it doesn't matter which professor you have, your grades are going to fall within a certain median. Now, don't hold me to these numbers because I always have to look them up every semester. But in your first year courses, I believe the median grade has to be between a 2.9 and a 3.1. Now, that means that the median for that class has to, for every single class, every contracts class, every criminal law class, has to fit within that norm, which means that it doesn't matter if you had Professor Flowers or you had Professor Brown, you still would be able to get that same grade curve. Our grade curve is about the same as most other law schools. Most law schools are going to have some grade normalization because it's important to be able to rank students across the class size. You all come here with amazing credentials. You all were straight A students when you came here, so there has to be the ability to rank them for a variety of different reasons, including job searches. So yes, we do have a grade normalization. It's a median grade normalization as opposed to some schools require a very specific number. We have a continuum, so students the median can be within that range. As you move from the first year to the second and third year, the median goes up. So, it goes as high as a 3.2 for some courses that are smaller class sizes and for some of your seminar papers. So it changes as you go forward, but it's pretty much traditional throughout the industry that you're going to have some sort of grade normalization.
Absolutely. And for the next set of questions, I actually want to touch on undergraduate course load. We have a couple of questions about being competitive in terms of being an undergrad and the mix of courses, the level of courses, diversity of courses. I briefly touched on this to begin with. First of all, again, major, don't worry about the major. What I had mentioned before about the mix of courses, what would be a negative would be a lot of introductory courses as a senior, or maybe you took one semester with one substantive course and then you took 3 gym related courses like badminton and something else, and you happen to get a 4.0 that semester. Well, we're going to look at the 4.0. Hey, that's great, but if they're all sort of fluff classes, that's going to be a negative, actually. So I think the number of credit hours isn't as important as the mix and type of classes you have. You might be taking a really difficult semester and have 12 credit hours. You may have a lighter load and take 17 or 19. So don't stress out about the number of credit hours. Look more at the mix and the level of difficulty of the courses. Another viewer actually asked about being active in student organization and community service, and do we consider those as part of the process? Absolutely. Remember, it goes back to the holistic file review, okay? You're a big package, right? You're a mix of everything. It's grades, it's courses you've taken, it's your extra and co-curricular activities. Are you a leader in those activities, or do you just sign up for a bunch of outside activities and you're a box checker? Okay? We want to see that you're a leader and that you've had responsibilities in those organizations. I strongly encourage everyone, every single candidate, to submit a resume. The resume is where you get to really highlight all of the things you've been involved with. It might be at your church or synagogue. Maybe you're a youth leader. Maybe you're part of you're working with a nonprofit in the community. You might be an active volunteer. If you don't put that in some kind of easy to read format, we might overlook it. So please, by all means, tell us about the things you do. I don't want to know what you did in high school. Professor Flowers is agreeing with me over here. You don't need to tell us everything you've done since you were 15 years old, right? We just want to know about your college and beyond.
Laura, can I just jump in there? When we talk about courses at the undergraduate level, let's remember there's 2 things we're talking about. First of all, we're talking about what is the admissions committee going to be looking at for getting me into law school. But let me also emphasize that you need to be using your undergraduate degree to also prepare you for law school, which means you need to have classes that aren't a bunch of multiple choice question tests, that don't require any sort of writing. You need to take every opportunity at the undergraduate level to refine your writing skills, because when you get to law school, that is going to be what is going to make you a successful law student or an unsuccessful law student. You don't have multiple choice questions for your final exams. You're going to have to be able to write. So you want to get that ability refined to the best of your ability prior to coming to law school. Really important. When I look at an undergraduate degree and I'm looking at a bunch of classes where probably the person didn't have to do any writing, I get concerned about their ability to be successful. So you also want to be considering you're getting prepared for law school in your undergraduate career, and you want to be thinking about that.
I think that's an important point. I'm really glad that you raised it. We have 2 questions about our culture, and I'm actually really excited that somebody wrote in about our culture. This is a point of pride for me. I think that we accurately reflect the pretty cool culture at Stetson. I say that.
I call myself cool
You call
every
yourself
chance
cool?
I get, yeah.
Professor Flowers is the cool mom too, so hey. But no, Stetson has a really unique culture. What I love about this is that, first of all, our campus, you can see it behind me. We were a resort originally built in the 1920s, this facility. The law school moved over from the main campus in DeLand, and what's really great is this campus is just for the law students. Our undergrads are 2.5 hours away. So we have an entire set of staff and faculty here that just serve and help the law students. You walk into the registrar's office and they know about every single course, who teaches it, how often it's held. You're not shuffled around from place to place. People generally are helping you, and the faculty are very unique, and this is something as an admissions dean I'm very proud. When I have an event, I just send one email. Hey folks, who can come out to have lunch with a group of admitted students on Saturday for our open house? 15 faculty come out on a Saturday to have lunch with the admins. I don't think it's like that at every school. Our faculty are seen frequently having coffee in the coffee shop or sitting outside in the courtyard chatting with the students. We have faculty members who have folks over for lunch for the holiday. Professor Podgore has students over for the Jewish holidays who aren't going home. Faculty members travel with our teams for competitions. Our faculty literally go, when they're coaching teams, they literally go to the competitions with their team to continue to coach them throughout the competition. That does not happen. So I say points of pride, our amazing facility, our staff, and how they work really hard to be good in terms of service and be available to students and our faculty and their accessibility. So Professor, do you want to add to some of that?
Yeah, I'm so excited when people ask about our culture, because we're very proud of our culture. And I want to tell you that even as we begin to look at our strategic plan for 5 years out, one of the things that we have in our strategic plan is to continue to expand on our ideas with regard to what makes our culture really unique. We like to talk about the fact that at Stetson we try to make every moment count. Every moment you're here at Stetson, we want to count to benefit you. Whether it is sitting around the fountain, chatting with a faculty member about what they did before they came to teach at Stetson, or whether it is going into the registrar's office and trying to figure out your courses. Every minute we want to be valuable to you. And that's a culture that we not only have now, but we want to continue to build on. So you need to understand that if you come to Stetson, we are invested in making this a good experience for you and something that you're going to enjoy. Law school should be enjoyed. It should not be just endured. And that's what we like to think of here at Stetson, that we want there to be some enjoyment here in addition.
And I think that's why we have such a satisfaction rate. Our alumni, in fact, on Wednesday night we had an alumni open house, and we had several hundred people came out. Most of the people who live within the area, but several hundred alumni and their families came out to get together for the holiday. And it's great to see so many people continue to give back. And that actually leads me to the next question about OCI. There's a program called On-Campus Interviewing that's run by Career Development. Every law school pretty much has it. It's where employers come to campus and they interview students. We don't have a lot of time to talk about OCI in its full details. What I will say is that we continue to have OCI. We're actually seeing more small and medium-sized firms come for OCI today than ever before. We're also seeing more government agencies participate in OCI. The large law firms have cut back pretty much all across the nation in OCI participation. But it is something that's popular and it's a very powerful tool, and I encourage you to look at it when you do enroll in law school. And
let me just add one thing. Every law school has OCI, but what a lot of law schools don't have that we have here at Stetson, that is a faculty that's committed on you getting a job. So you're going to have faculty members that are willing to make the phone calls, that are going to be willing to help you to network in ways that will get you a job. That's important to us, and we're going to make that happen in a very different way than you may see at other law schools. Probably because most of us have very strong ties to the legal community.
I'm going to take one last question here. We may run a minute or two over, but I think I'm going to take this last question because this is a pretty good question. Is Stetson a good place to prepare for a career in litigation? And I'm going to ask our former prosecutor, federal prosecutor, and Professor Flowers to kind of jump in, because the answer is yes. Yes.
Oh, the answer to the question is absolutely yes. If you are interested in litigation, if that's where you see yourself, if you see yourself in trials, in negotiations, in client counseling, in depositions, this is the only place to come. We're number one because every year we figure out ways to make our skills training better. We have a committed faculty of full-time faculty members and an amazing group of adjuncts that teach you how to be litigators. And if you ask the courts across the state of Florida, they're going to tell you, we know a Stetson advocate. We know them from the minute they walk in the courtroom because they know what they're doing. So if you're interested in advocacy, if you're interested in litigation, there's no other place to be but Stetson.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I know you guys are getting ready for the holiday. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. I think we have a slide that's going to come up with some contact information, so I'm not going to repeat those, but email me. email Darren. We'll get you in touch with Professor Flowers. Or if
Absolutely.
you want to do environmental law, we'll get you in touch with Professor Gardner. The ball's in your court, guys. We're happy to help you. I'm happy to talk with you about admissions, about scholarships. We do loans here. So give us a call, give us an email, and I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and Happy Holidays. And stay safe and keep in touch.
And good luck.
Good luck. Thanks.
Thank you for watching Stetson Law Live. For more information, send us an email or give us a call. For your convenience, our contact information will remain on screen for the next few minutes. Be sure to check our homepage often for news, information, and updates. Thanks again. We look forward to hearing from you soon.